second podcast for Cage Side Combat. I'm Connor, and once again, I'm joined by Kyle.
Hello.
And Brad.
What's up, guys?
We're here to talk about all things MMA from the last fortnight and preview the cards for this weekend. And at the end of this podcast, Brad will have his first defence of his heavy debate title. Our first talking point in this episode is the card that took place last weekend. Yoel Romero KO'd Luke Rockhold, but he did miss weight. I know you both enjoyed Rockhold getting knocked out. How was the event in Australia?
I absolutely loved it. It's a great card from top to bottom, actually. And I have a personal vendetta against Luke Rockhold for watching him getting knocked out by even an overweight Yoel Romero was absolutely fantastic for me. So, yeah. What do you think, Kyle?
Yeah, great event. So many good performances, so many good fights. Good main event. One of those main events where I was watching and barely spoke for the whole event, just watching every little move, and paid off brilliantly. So yeah.
I have to say, one of the things I enjoy most about the UFC being an international company and positioning its pay-per-views and its fight nights all across the globe is when it gives an opportunity to really showcase local talent. One of the times when this was most evident was the UFC fight night in Shanghai with Bisping and Gastelum. We saw so many Chinese athletes really shine. We saw another one of them tonight in Li Jingliang. That's definitely
solid pronunciation.
That's definitely getting me arrested for a hate crime. But tonight in UFC Perth, never more evident with the amount of not necessarily only Australian, but just Maori performers in total. We saw such a strong talent, especially Tai Tuivasa, who we'll come to later. But it's great to see that kind of local talent really being showcased by the UFC for once.
So, great performance from Romero. Obviously knocked out Rockhold. Where do you see him moving next? Does he go for Whittaker?
I mean, it's a hard one, isn't it? Because this was meant to be an interim title fight. And the assurance of an interim title fight is that you fight the champion next for the undisputed title. The thing was, he did miss weight, so he's not eligible for the interim titleship. But at the same time, could you really argue he fights anyone next? I don't know. Like, apart from Luke Rockhold, there wasn't really a clear contender in that division, and now you really can't argue that Luke could fight for the title after this. So I say yes. What do you reckon, Carl?
I think it's got to be Romero Jacare again. I think Yoel would have got a shot if he had made weight, but he didn't. So I don't think they want Yoel to fight Whittaker again. I'm not really that keen on seeing it just now. So I think their first fight was really close, Romero and Jacare. So run that back, see how that goes, and then winner fights Whittaker, and then that'll buy Whittaker time to get back to health as well.
See, the argument I make there is that the first fight with Whittaker and Yoel was such a 5-round war. I do agree that I don't think that either fighter is much different to what they were back then, because it was July. I don't think it particularly changes the circumstance, but I would still love to see it again. And if there is, by all means, if Yoel beats Whittaker by some margin, that stands to make a trilogy in the middleweight division, which I think is a really good thing. If he'd have beat Rockhold via decision, I'd be on the same boat as you and saying absolutely not. There's no way he's going to get this title shot. But it wasn't a decision. It was an uppercut from Cuba, an absolute missile from Cuba that landed. Do you know what I've seen before? I don't know if you guys have seen the medical suspensions for UFC Perth. Luke Rockhold has got 180 days suspension, no contact, pending dental authorization. He has to have the UFC's dentists to examine his jaw before he can even train again.
I thought it would be mental health after being kissed that many times by Romero.
Yeah.
Do you know, me, Kyle, and Connor always take the piss out of the Yoel. I love you. On the UFC's what do they call it? The highs and lows or whatever it's called.
Something.
They mic'd up Yoel after when he was kissing Yoel. He went, "I love you, Luke. I love you." I was like, phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal.
He's just. I just want more broken English like promos from him.
Mm-hmm.
Can't wait.
Just give him a stage and a mic.
Can't wait for the Rogan interview. Like,
That's good.
The thing is with the guy is like he's a 40-year-old that is at the top of probably one of the most athletic divisions in the UFC, and as of yet, I mean, has he ever got popped by USADA? I know people always sort of speculate it, but has he ever actually got popped?
I don't think so. But
No,
I showed a video of Romero knocking out Rockholds to one of my friends who he knows a bit about UFC, but doesn't know a lot. And then I said that Romero was 40, 41, and he just couldn't believe it because he's just in phenomenal shape. And if they do put him up against Jacare, I think Jacare's 38. There's two old boys fighting there.
It's crazy. Also, if you look at Romero's resume, I saw this the other day on Twitter. They had Anderson Silva's resume next to Yoel Romero's, and the people that Yoel Romero's beat is incredible. He's lost once, and that was to Whittaker, and he's beat Weidman by knockout. He's beat Jacare, beat Rocco by knockout. Like, he's ridiculous.
Yeah, and they're not just knockouts as well. They're pretty graphic
They're
knockouts.
highlight reels.
Like the Chris Weidman one, I watch it back, and I really like Chris Weidman. I think he seems like a really nice guy. He's a phenomenal athlete. He's a great wrestler, and I find it very difficult to watch that fight. Like, it's the way that he's so unpredictable, and the way he just flies through the air and he clips him, and you see Chris go down, and you see the blood start spurting, and he starts ground and pounding him, and it's horrific. And the fact that this guy is 40 plus and doing this to prime athletes, and the fact that was not only was he in title contention, but he's still in title contention, it's marvelous, to be quite honest. Like, he should be paraded around by the UFC far more than he is.
But imagine if he hit this sort of form at the age of 31, 32. Imagine what he could do in later years. It's a shame that he's kind of almost at the end of his career when he hits this sort of form, because he is astonishing. That punch, it's the first punch that knocks Rocco down's bad enough, but it's the second punch is just nasty.
Watching it in slow motion, like, I hate Rocco, but watching it in slow motion is horrendous. Like, the way he uppercuts straight into his face it's very graphic. But going back to your point where you say, imagine if he came in his early 30s, I think this kind of caliber of athlete, the way this Olympic caliber of athlete, I don't think they could necessarily get into a private organization like the UFC in this kind of form before this age, because you look at, I mean, to my knowledge, like, and this is just off the top of my head right now, the only other Olympic athlete I can think of in the UFC is Daniel Cormier, who obviously came into the MMA fairly late into his career as well, and he's experiencing a very similar
Rousey,
actually, yeah, fair point. But you could argue with Rousey, we didn't see the same kind of dominance. Like,
no, I think it was she was kind of the start of it, and kind of didn't have good competition.
Yeah.
Until she got kicked in the head by Holly Holm and then punched in the face by Amanda Nunes.
I mean, I suppose what you could argue the age is that they came in with that Olympic background, but they'd given it the time to train everything else. But, man, Yoel Romero, he's amazing. He's amazing. And when you ask who should he face next, I say anyone.
Who wants to face him next?
Yeah. It's his abs that get me. It's like...
No, it's his thighs.
It's
tree trunks.
It's like... I remember speaking to someone who was saying it's weird how the UFC is one of the few sports where the guys don't all have, like, chiseled abs. And the argument to that is it's not actually an advantage to, grappling. if you train jiu-jitsu all day, you're not going to develop those abs. And then there's people like Chael Sonnen who argue that it's actually impossible to get truly defined 8-packs without the use of performance-enhancing steroids.
Well, yeah, he's got that 4-pack, whatever his book was.
Yeah, 4-pack revolution.
Yeah.
And then there's Yoel Romero, that each one of his ab muscles is the size of my bicep, and so defined it could pop out of his stomach at any time.
Talking of muscles, did you see the photo of Sage Northcutt?
Yes.
Where his bicep muscle, it's just
ridiculous.
He has no amount of fat on him. I think I had a streak of bacon that has more fat on it than Sage Northcutt does.
You definitely do. I seen he posted on Instagram next to the Ghostbusters truck and put who you're gonna call, and the top comment was USADA.
Brilliant.
That did make me chuckle. Sage is a special one.
But moving on, so we touched on it a bit earlier with Taito Avasa, but there are some very good performances at the cards. Tuivasa dominated Sirilaska, and then did his interesting belly dance. Still unsure. I kind of have just recovered from watching Roy Nelson do that a lot.
Yeah.
And now we've got Tai Tuivasa. I'm still a bit shaken. And then Israel Adesanya, easy for me to say, destroyed Rob Wilkinson in his UFC debut. I told you two about him and said to watch him, and he kind of lived up to the hype. Because I've been watching him for probably a while now. I think it was one of those things where, you get random up-and-comers follow you on Instagram and Twitter. I think he followed me and then unfollowed instantly. And then I just have been watching him since. But very good performance. Who were we most impressed with?
I was most impressed, and it was the person who I had my eyes on the most going into it. So maybe it's me being biased, but Tyson Pedro just impresses me all the time. He had that loss. He was coming off a loss to Ilia Latifi, but he just looks so good. I had a bet on him to win by knockout. I was like, yeah, he's gonna piece that guy up, and he won by a Kimura in ridiculous fashion. He looks so good. He looks so confident. I think the UFC can definitely market him as you got Tai Tuivasa can kind of take that Mark Hunt role in that area. I think Tyson Pedro is going to be a big star in that area. He just fits the bill, and his striking is brilliant. So yeah, him.
That Kimura was insane. He just
incredible.
That was just power, and kind of showed if you can bend the arm in the wrong way, you can get anyone to go anywhere.
Yeah,
and just raw power.
So as you say, the of the local talent in this night, Tai Tuivasa, he definitely, he trains with Mark Hunt and definitely picked up that mantle that night. I mean, it was kind of symbolic the way Mark Hunt lost to a new and up-and-comer, and then Tai Tuivasa comes in and demolishes the guy in the same way that Mark Hunt was so accustomed to. But yeah, I have to agree with you. Tyson Pedro, what a talent. I had the same thing. When I seen this fight, I was like, yeah, I got Tyson, and I've got him using, because I've seen him training boxing before, and he's an excellent boxer. I think I seen an interview where he said his dad might have been a professional boxer in Australia. I don't know whether I'm getting that confused, but I'm pretty sure that's true.
His dad runs an MMA gym or an MMA promotion out in Australia. I think
that might have
it's
been
like the main one out there. I think that's right.
Yeah. But either way, I was the same. Like when he fought Ilia Latifi, I was expecting big things, and it didn't happen. But you know what? That happens when the UFC is so quick to capitalize on new talent that you do end up having these problems. Like Tyson Pedro, and I'm pretty sure it was his UFC debut when he fought Ilia Latifi. It might not have been, but I'm pretty sure it was. It was at least the first time I'd heard of him. And he loses, and it's like, well, of course he did. Ilia Latifi's a veteran of the light heavyweight division, and you're just going to throw him in there under the lights and expect him to flourish. It's like, it's probably not going to happen. This is my worry for Israel Adesanya, because, like you say, Connor, you pointed me out to me and said to watch him. Similarly, I had actually had a few friends who'd also posted to me videos of his highlights in kickboxing and boxing. So I was taking notice of this guy, and Jesus Christ, what an amazing kickboxer! Like his striking was absolutely next level. I can't fault the guy whatsoever. He came in, he made a statement, and then he has that amazing attitude that's perfectly marketable as well, which is
very good on social media.
Oh, he's amazing. He's hilarious.
He is so funny. The amount of time he just has berated anyone that compared him to John Jones.
Yeah.
And just everything like that. It's been really funny to see kind of how he's dealt with almost the newfound popularity and fame that he gained from such good performance.
But
going back to the Tyson Pedro thing, speaking about parents, we've got there's a lot of big fighters who parents were fighters in theirs, because obviously Ronda Rousey, I think her mum was judo.
Yeah.
Wonderboy Thompson, Sage Northcutt. They're some really good fighters. So it's kind of, when it's in the blood, it helps a lot.
Yeah, I've just Googled it, and he's the son of John Pedro, who owns King of the Cage. So there you go. And
there you go.
He's been training something I didn't know. I always see him as a striker, but he's been training Japanese jiu-jitsu since he was 4. So
damn,
that explains the Kimura.
Yeah.
No.
I mean, I have to admit, it was a pretty, I imagine it's hard when you're in that chaos to see the opportunity for a move like a Kimura, and to just see it when you're getting absolutely tagged as well. I mean, it doesn't, some people will say, oh, it was a chance thing, it was a luck thing, but at the end of the day, you saw the opportunity, you grabbed it, and the guy didn't defend it. That's skill. That's not luck, that's skill.
Yeah.
And for a guy that was pegged as a striker in a division that's pegged as mainly strikers, apart from Glover Teixeira, he submitted the guy with a Kimura in the first round, like in his backyard, so to speak.
Yeah.
The one other mention I want to give on the card, a bit lower down, is it says Hussier Formiga.
Oh, anyway. Formiga. Yeah, because that was the spinning back fist into
the RNC.
Really?
Yeah.
Jushin Formiga.
Awesome. And especially in a division that definitely needs new blood, because I know the rumor mill's going for the TJ DJ fight. That is what it is.
Can they please promote it as TJ DJ?
Yeah,
that is just the best.
TJ DJ.
But I think going back to saying that pushing people too much, we had to see with Adesanya, and we've seen it with Pedro. Taito Avasa's ranked number 15, and he's kind of snuck in to the division, and you don't realise, but he's now 15, and I think if you can kind of promote him a bit more, and he's already there, because even a loss doesn't damage him too much.
Yeah. Well, it's the same. There's actually, this is what marks it as a really good card, in my opinion. Is that there are a few fighters that we can peg for future greatness. I can guarantee the MMA community will all have their eyes on Jose Formiga, because he's one of the only contenders of that division. Same goes for Tyson Pedro, like how shallow it is the light heavyweight division, especially if Daniel Cormier is officially moving to heavyweight. Same goes for Tai Tuivasa. With a couple more wins, he could definitely be in title contention. I mean, good luck with Stipe, but whatever. But I think the main one where this is a problem, and I think I can foresee it already, you know what I mean? Israel Adesanya, I've seen the UFC promoting him quite a lot already. I mean, fair enough, he's a very accomplished kickboxer. He's a very accomplished boxer. And he's moved to MMA with a lot of hype. But I've seen the UFC promoting him so much already. He just got that very definitive win. I'm willing to put money on the fact the next time he fights is against a top 10 opponent on the pay-per-view card, on the main card. Because the UFC are not good at cooking things slowly. Like I think it's the reason we've not seen Darren Till since his Cerrone fight. I think the next time we see him, he's going to be against a top 10 opponent on a pay-per-view card. Not that I'm saying that's a bad thing. What I'm saying is it might be too much too soon. Like,
I think this is the drawback with them now. Instead of kind of going with what the the rankings are, and instead going for trying to the money fights.
Yeah.
Whereas we, as fans, we get fights that we want to see. GSP Bisping, we get who would ever thought we'd see that? And that is a big money fight. But that again, kind of, if they hand pick talent and younger talent that will make the money. Paige Van Zandt is another case.
Yeah.
That's kind of, she can make the money, and she's kind of, they've given her enough of a name to get money, but they're just pushing her way too much.
It's the same as we'll talk about later. We talked about him a bit, but Sage Northcutt again. Mm-hmm. It's almost like it's almost like a cliche. We need to promote the classic church-going white boy. Like, it's the same with Paige. It's like they should just marry Paige and Sage together, and you just promote that. Like,
have the wedding live on pay-per-view.
Yeah, in the octagon between the co-main and the main event, and just Dana just in the background jerking off.
Have you seen the Michael Bisping, his wedding, where Bruce Buffer announces them out?
I have not. That sounds amazing.
It is my favourite video.
How have I not seen this?
Genuine, you two, anyone listening, need to see this video. I think it's definitely on YouTube. It is just the best video. He, in full Bruce Buffer, just announces them out as they come down the aisle.
I wonder how much that costs, because I'm so interested in that.
I want that.
I never want to get married, but if I'm getting announced by Bruce Buffer, I'll come out and I'll fucking rear naked choke the bitch at the altar. I swear to God. If he announces the victory as well, I'll do it. That sounds amazing.
It was. I think we need to look back now. Cast your minds back 2 weeks to the Machida Anders card. A not too bad card. Main event was okay, but I feel the thing that we need to talk about that has had the most opinions and is still kind of going really in the news was the Valentina Shevchenko Priscilla Cachoeira fight. Possibly the most one-sided fight in UFC history. First round, most people calling it a 10-7, and then finally being finished with rear naked choke in the second round. Who do you think's? I think to frame this question, I think we need to say who do we think's to blame for this?
Good question. I think the UFC matchmakers are to blame for it. To be honest, I get that it's a new division, but it doesn't. That doesn't matter to me. If Chris Cyborg decided she could cut to 135, you wouldn't put her up against an unranked. Wouldn't she making her debut as well? You wouldn't do that because she would get. It's just that's not a fight that makes any sense to anybody. Like Shevchenko was coming off of a loss, but it was against Amanda Nunes. It doesn't make any sense.
And a split decision.
Exactly.
She didn't lose.
I don't think anybody would have complained if they just put her straight in there against the champion. So I don't understand.
But I think the problem, the argument against that, I'm not saying I agree with this, but I'm play devil's advocate here. The argument against it is that one, Priscilla Cachoeira, she was undefeated. I think she was undefeated. And two, it's an empty division. Who else are you gonna, apart from the champion, who are you gonna put her against? And if it is a championship fight and the first title defence at that weight, it needs to be in a big card. And if Shevchenko doesn't want to wait, you kind of have to feed opponents to her.
I mean that's a really good point, but I have to agree. It's like it is the same as Cyborg making 135 and then feeding her fucking Raquel Pennington. It would literally be like feeding a dog. Like, she's just going to eat her up. And the fact of the matter is, like, the division might be empty, but we did a whole series of tough to fill the division, so there is an actual division. Nico needs to make a title defense at some point, and she knows, as Joanna likes to say, and as I said last week, the boogie woman's coming. It is Valentina Shevchenko. She knew that was going to be on the horizon. Unless she was going to vacate, she knew she had to fight Valentina. Did she need a warm-up fight? Did she need a title contention fight, especially against an unranked woman that wasn't even on the series of tough? Like, if you wanted to make an argument for a number one contender spot, you should have put her against one of the losers of the tough series, like Roxanne Modafferi. Again, she would have got her face smashed in by elbows, but at the same time, they would definitely have made an argument that she had more of a contention than this Basilica Shahara. At the same time, Maria Yamasaki didn't actually see her tapping, and then she had to tap again, which I know is not the end of the world, but at the same time, it's not like it was the first defense in the fight. The girl had been absolutely pummeled for a good 15 minutes. It just, the whole fight was a bit dirty. And you know what I possibly think the biggest tragedy is that we're not praising Valentina's amazing skill. We're all focusing on the girl shouldn't have been in there and the referee shouldn't be in there, apart from the fact Valentina should definitely have been in there. She just should have had a better opponent and a better referee. I personally don't think the referee would have been an issue had she had the right opponent.
You're only praising her because she's the new love of your life.
Oh, God. Valentina, if you're out there, if you're listening, I will marry you.
With Bruce Buffer announcing.
With Bruce Buffer announcing.
But I think she's, as you said, we kind of touched on slightly, she possibly did beat Amanda Nunes. It was a very close split decision. I think personally I had Nunes, but it was either way.
I think in that... Go on.
I just think she's one of the best pound-for-pound women's fighters in the world. Unbelievable talent on the ground, unbelievable striking. And I can see her just dominating this division and possibly ending up with a kind of Demetrius Johnson situation where there's not a lot of contenders and she is just destroying them. And then she's forced to go back up and fight whoever's champion at the time.
Yeah. I mean, the thing was she was a champ. I'm pretty sure she was a champion kickboxer before she came to the UFC.
Yeah, she beat Joanna Jacek I think 3 times. She had beaten her in World Championships.
Well, I don't think it was quite 125, was it? Because it's done in kilograms because they did it in European division. So I think it was like 126 or something. You know, that's negligible. So she exists in the kind of the pound range where pounds actually matter. So the difference between a strawweight and a flyweight are critical. Whereas the difference between a light heavyweight and a heavyweight is kind of like whatever. Especially
when Francis is weighing in 265
and cutting weight together.
Yeah. It's stupid.
But yeah, so I mean, you might have some bantamweights that consider making a change. I know Rose Namajunas actually cuts to get to 115. I don't think she cuts that much, but. I'm happy for this because Valentina has always said all along, I mean, she was dominating the bantamweight division, and she always said all along she cuts like 2 or 3 pounds to get to 135. Like she walks around at like 137, 138. So like the fact that she was being like she was cutting to 135 and then having to fight these women that were weighing in at 150,
especially Amanda Nunes.
Yeah, I
she's
mean,
a monster.
And the fact she dealt with that, like if you think about that, the fact that she's probably coming into the octagon at maybe 137, and then Amanda's probably coming in at like 155, like an actual lightweight. The fact that she held her own against a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt and an incredible striker, like that's. If anyone in the flyweight division thinks they can beat I mean, we might get into it later when we get into debates, but Nico, vacate, love. It's better for your career.
Yeah, especially with Joanna as well. I feel like, I mean, the crazy thing is Joanna's set for the rematch with Rose. If she beats Rose, then she might stick around in that division for a bit. But I think we're going to see in the next 2 years at least 2 fights between Shevchenko and Joanna for that belt. That's exciting, to be honest. That's a great fight. That's in my opinion, if you discount Cyborg, maybe the 2 best pound-for-pound women in the UFC. Holly Holm, Cyborg, you can throw in there. But apart from that...
Shevchenko dominated Holm.
Exactly. And out-grappled Juliana Pena as well. Like she's for me, she's the pound-for-pound in the UFC, women's.
So, my question here for you two is, if they fight, because obviously they fought in kickboxing before, which is mainly grappling, if they fight again, do you reckon we see any grappling? Do you reckon we see any of the jiu-jitsu? Because like you said, Valentina out-grappled Juliana Pena, and she displayed pretty good proficiency on the ground with Amanda Nunes, who isn't just a black belt, and she isn't just a Brazilian jiu-jitsu black belt. She is an actual Brazilian jiu-jitsu black belt. She grew up around BJJ. Like, she grew up in that, and she looked fine on the floor. So my question is, do you think we see that in the rematch? Do you think that plays a difference?
I think what we see is something kind of akin to Ngannou versus Stipe, where they're both, like, Ngannou obviously could knock out Stipe, and Stipe could probably knock out Ngannou. And though it's possibly boring and not the way we want it to, I think Shevchenko sticks to the game plan and I think does take it to the ground. Because Joanna, her takedown defense is good, but I don't think she's been tested massively yet, and I think that's what Shevchenko brings.
Yeah, I completely agree. When the people who do wrestle with her don't set it up nearly as well as Valentina Shevchenko does. When you've got somebody who's that good on the feet, who can set up takedowns with combinations and stuff, it's a totally different ballgame, Claudia Gadelha does that quite well, and she had the most success. So, yeah, I think Shevchenko would definitely win. Like, you add in ground game to a fight between her and Joanna, and that just swings it even more in her favour. So,
the only thing I compare Shevchenko's style to, and the only person that I feel you can, is Demetrius Johnson, with just how it flows and how seamless it is.
Yeah,
and there's no one better at stitching together moves.
It's kind of like, oh, you want to take it there, fine, I'll take it there. And then when you take it there, I'm going to beat you there. And then, what, you want to take it there? Fine, I'll take it there. Why not? And then
the opposite to like Nurmagomedov's style, where Nurmagomedov's like, we're going here, no choice.
Yeah. I mean, it's almost like the perfect defensive style, because you're just waiting for your opponent to expose their strength and just going, oh, that was it. Oh, bitch, you're in for a long night. And that's what Shevchenko does. And like, I feel like that was the problem with the Shev Nunes fight. I'm sorry, but people can argue it was a tactical chess game all they want. All I know is I waited up all night. I saw 2 rounds and I was asleep by the 3rd. And I woke up literally with my head hanging off the end of my bed at like 12 o'clock the next day. And I was like, what was the result? Oh, it was a shit decision. Like, both of them were too scared to get involved because both of them knew what they both had to offer. And that's the danger of... you could argue that was a super fight, because that was the 125 champion coming up against the 135 champion. And that is the danger in a super fight, because you both know you're both well-rounded, dominant champions. So you're scared to get involved in any of... you're scared to get involved in striking. You're scared to get involved on the ground. You're scared to get involved in a clinch game. So you both separate. that's a danger when it comes to the Stipe DC fight. Like, everyone's saying it's going to be this war or it's going to be this wrestling match. The chances are they both stay on the outside and Stipe just picks him off and DC goes for lunges and then Stipe uses his bigger leg distance to sweep away. This is why Dana was so hesitant about these interdivisional mixes.
Yeah, super fights. That's why Anderson Jones never happened.
Yeah,
in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty valid reason. You know, there's a lot of people that think boxing was ruined by this kind of mentality. I think it has to happen. I mean, the fact that you weigh 10 pounds different on a weigh-in day doesn't mean that you can never fight someone that's 10 pounds. Yeah. I mean, you can have a shit and weigh 10 pounds less if you've had like a decent meal the night before. Jesus Christ. So yeah, Chev to be champion pretty soon.
Yeah, I think we all unanimously agree with that.
Yeah, but does anyone ever have anything to say about Lyoto Machida winning? Does anyone care?
I think we touched on it. Well, I think I said in the last episode that I just don't care as much for Machida anymore. He's just I think 5 years ago, maybe, when he kind of still had the magic aura of the Karate Kid.
Of USADA.
All that. Yeah, pre-USADA. But now I'm not excited. I think it would have benefited the UFC much more if they had, and if Anders won. Because then they could, if Anders won dominantly against Machida, then you can push Anders. But because Machida won in a close fight, you have to slightly. You're sort of like, I guess we kind of still have to keep promoting him.
I mean, but what are we doing with him? You know, I just don't know. It's one of them where we have to keep promoting him, but why? He won, great.
I feel Anderson Silva's now in that category of, he was Anderson Silva, but so much has ruined it since then.
Well, I was going to say, like, I know we got into this on the last podcast, but I feel like we might have to sort of adopt Ryzen as an official sponsor. But so I seen a picture the other day, and it was showing Machida before USADA and post USADA, and it's literally like me before and after Christmas dinner. And I just think the time is up, mate. Like there's no way you can argue you're still a legitimate threat at this middleweight division. I mean, he's never fought Anderson Silva before, and they're both not similar styles, because he's definitely more like like Anderson is definitely more an attack based style. But who was it that Machida knocked out via front kick? Was it Vitor? Was it Couture?
Yeah.
Oh, the crane kick, yeah.
Yeah, with a crane kick.
Yeah. You know, not a million miles away from Anderson versus Vitor.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it was, apart from the hand position, doing
that's the thing. I prefer that to, everyone talks about the Anderson Vitor, but I'll put the crane kick over Anderson Vitor knockout any day of the week. I think it's just, I know it's on an old Randy Couture, but it's just taking the mick, really.
Yeah.
He puts the hands up and then crane kicks him and knocks him out.
It's so Karate Kid. It's pretty G, to be fair. Yeah. It's pretty G. But I don't know. I'd like to see them. They both say they want to carry on fighting, but the evidence really points towards them both retiring. But it's like, if you're going to, you clearly need some medical help, and if you're going to do that, just go somewhere where your SARS not going to ruin the party.
Get some good sponsors, get some money, go to Ryzen, and then make one last paycheck and head off into the sun.
They're both Brazilian. Like, I'm pretty sure a Brazilian promotion would pick them up, do one massive event in a Brazilian stadium.
I don't know how much money there is in that country at the moment.
Well, it's about as much as they're gonna get. So, but it's just like just admit, both of you, that your futures aren't in the like the top echelon of the UFC. Like, pride might take over, and you might think that you're gonna get back up there, but it's just not. Just admit it.
Okay, so we're going to move on now to a new section. I say new, we're only 2 episodes in, but a new section of the podcast where I'm going to ask Kyle some questions about about the news stories of the past fortnight, and he's going to reply with some quick answers. So the first subject is on UFC 222. It's been reshuffled with Holloway being forced out to injury. What do you make of the new card?
The new card, I'm looking at it right now, it's actually really good. I know that this is quick news, but there's some really good fights on here. You got the John Dodson fight versus Pedro Munoz has been moved to this card. According to Wikipedia, Bernardo Dariush is fighting without an opponent right now. I don't know what's happening with that. You've got Kat Zingano versus Ketlin Vieira on the card, which is a good fight. The dreaded
Kat Zingano coming back.
Yeah, Kat Zingano, that's an interesting fight. You got the absolutely dreaded Stefan Struve versus Andrei Arlovski fight, which we almost had as the main event. You got Sean O'Malley on the card, who's great fun to watch. Frankie Edgar, Brian Ortega, and then Chris Cyborg versus, I don't know, I might butcher this name, Yana Kunitskaya, who is coming over from Invicta as the Invicta champion. So, yeah, they've both got common opponents in Tonya, Zombie Mum, Evinger. Interesting that Kunitskaya lost to Evinger and Cyborg kind of bullied her. So I
think most people have been bullied by Cyborg.
Yeah, but I feel like if you tune in into the main event, expect it to be a classic Cyborg headhunting fest.
If I can interject, I will have to say, like, after it being a pretty lackluster event, it's actually turned out to be pretty good.
Yeah, really good.
The only thing I would like, just harkening back to a point we made before, Sugar Shane O'Malley is third down on the pay-per-view.
Yeah,
this is exactly what we were saying. Like, the guy, don't get me wrong, I love the guy. He's got such a character and he's got such a talent, but not the time, guys. Not the time. I mean, he's not against a major opponent, but like that, what happens if he suffers defeat? You're throwing him back to early prelims. But Kat Zingano, I can't wait for her to come back.
Hype for the return. So, next question. I know you've been playing a lot of EA UFC like me. I'm kind of just getting to grips with the game. I'm starting to actually win fights now. What's your quick review on it?
I love UFC 3 and I hate it. I got told by my friends to stop playing it because it made me a very angry person.
Same here.
Yeah, it makes me very angry. However, the more that I play it and the more I get used to the systems and stuff, the more I'm enjoying it and the less angry I get. So that's good that there is a very clear learning curve. And yeah, I don't know if it's the best. A lot of people say it's the best MMA game ever. I don't know. I'd have to go back and play a bunch of the old ones because I think fond memories of those ones. So
I think it's the most realistic, but the best for me will always be Undisputed 3. THQ Undisputed 3. That was always the game.
Yeah.
I have to say, out of the ones I've played, UFC 3 definitely seems the most natural. I've only played 1, 2, and 3. I've never played any of the Undisputed ones, but number 3 feels great to me. It feels a very natural game system, and the graphics are insane.
So good. Have you played Knockout Mode yet?
Yes.
Yeah.
Because the Snoop Dogg commentary on Knockout Mode.
Oh my god.
It's interesting.
Mm.
There's so many people complaining about it. I'm literally like, this is exactly what I wanted from a game.
It's just brilliant.
You see Matt Brown?
It's like when they had like Joe Rogan as a edible character. It's just brilliant.
You see Matt Brown on the
it's
podcast?
Go on.
You see Matt Brown on Rogan's podcast saying about how he wants to knock Snoop Dogg out? And it's like...
Yeah.
Snoop Dogg, what are you expecting good commentary?
Is anyone actually taking Snoop Dogg seriously?
Exactly.
Like, I thought as a world we'd all just agreed to treat him as a massive joke.
Yeah.
Like, and then Matt Brown's like,
now.
I'm going to, reincarnated?
No, Snoop Dogg's, he's got that
Coach
documentary
Snoop.
on Coach Snoop on Netflix.
He's a
I haven't seen it.
He's a huge football fan, isn't he?
Yeah.
But it's like the series he did where he's commentating with Uriah Faber, and he had loads of UFC fighters like, well, why are they doing this? Is this a joke? I'm like, they've got Uriah Faber drinking gin and juice with Snoop Dogg. Do you think you were meant to take this seriously?
That's what I want.
Yeah. That's exactly
and it's
what
like, and you got Uriah Faber just trying to explain shit to him, and Snoop Dogg is just like, oh shit! It's like it was clearly meant to be a joke, and everyone's like, oh, this was poor commentary. I'm like, obviously, that was the point.
Okay, so last question now. A lot of drama surrounding the welterweight title with both Diaz and my personal favourite, Dos Anjos, calling out Woodley. Who do you think should be Woodley's next opponent?
RDA, I think, is the clear choice. He's beaten some great competition. That Robbie Lawler fight in particular was brilliant. And I don't care how much trash talk. I tell you what, actually, I was going to say that it doesn't matter how much Woodley tries, I still don't buy into him. The comments that Woodley made about Dana White, they did make me laugh, so I'll give him that.
Yeah.
And he's trying to do stand-up comedy, so I guess that's a good sign. But yeah, I hope it's RDA, and I really hope RDA wins.
Yeah, I think for people that don't know, RDA put up a kind of like a Photoshop of a main event card of Tyron Woodley facing Justin Bieber, and just complaining about how Woodley just wants the money fights and isn't actually fighting good opponents. And I think that's probably in an age where everyone's trying to trash talk, I think that's probably the most creative I've seen in a while.
Yeah, definitely. Tony Ferguson should take lessons, because that's some dad level like trash talk, but it's good. It's good dad level trash talk. You know, could have had Conor McGregor versus Justin Bieber ages ago, so he missed a trick there.
That definitely would have. Yeah.
I on that like subject note, we had so today the UFC on Fox account made a tweet about Ben Askren, which actually became their most retweeted and most favorited tweet of all time. Where he was, but they basically just said like, "Would you like to see Ben Askren in the UFC?" And people, just going bonkers. It was referencing the fact that Joe Rogan on his podcast had said that he would sit down and broker the deal between Ben Askren and Dana White, and he made me laugh because I was literally thinking, I was like, there are few people in this world that Dana White truly hates, and the welterweight title is a key title in the UFC, and he does not like Tyron Woodley, but the one person in this world he would not rather see having that welterweight title is Ben Askren. It's like the fact that Dana White has the choice between Ben Askren and Dana White, it's like his personal hell. It's quite funny.
I think Ben Askren is probably the only guy, should I say the first guy that I fully paid attention to that wasn't in the UFC. Like, I made an effort to watch his fights because he's just insane. But they've always said that he wouldn't, especially now because he's such good friends with Woodley.
Yeah.
It would be good to see Askren in UFC. He's kind of 33, 34, hitting that age.
I mean, he's still not that old though.
Way too early to retire.
Yeah, I mean, he's retired. He says he's made his money. That's all well and good. But I mean, is the reason that he's friends with Woodley because he's an American top team, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's the reason.
I think they trained for. I think they. Don't quote me on this, but I think they pretty much grew up or nearly started at the same time. I think.
I mean, if they can broker a deal, and I mean, this is a big if, but if Habib wins the £155 title, even if not, Habib versus Ben Askren would be an incredible fight. I think that's a fight a lot of, at least hardcore fans would really want to see. It's not going to draw the masses, but it would be a very, very interesting fight nonetheless.
Okay, going to look now to the cards this weekend. We've got quite an awkward card for UK fans, having the UFC on a Sunday, which we're not happy about at all. But I think first we'll look at Bellator 194, headlined by Matt Mitrione versus Roy Nelson in the heavyweight tournament. What do we make of this tournament headlining pay-per-views, especially over McDonald's in the last event?
In the last event, I have to say I was really, really upset by the choice of the headliner, particularly because I'm pretty sure it was marketed as Roy versus Douglas was going to be the headline event, and then it was kind of like a week out. They announced that Chael versus Rampage was going to be the main event. When I say I like the tournament thing, I like the style of the tournament. I don't necessarily like the participants in the tournament, but it's very Bellator. I mean, who else are going to put in it?
Yeah, I mean, an interesting thing that made me laugh today is Matt Mitrione did an interview and said it doesn't matter who wins the tournament, but the best heavyweight on the planet will still be Stipe. And it's just like, well done, Matt. I don't know.
That's very pointing out the obvious.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you could look at. I mean, that statement really made me laugh because you look at the contestants and most of them are light heavyweights, and then some of them are heavyweights that are that was just a ridiculous statement to make. I don't really care for the tournament. I was really looking forward to it, but I think everyone kind of knew it looked cool on paper, but would probably be a bit rubbish in practice.
Just everyone lying on top of each other.
Yeah.
Like the poster got me super hyped. Like when it came out, I was like, "Oh shit, this is some Pride level stuff." So like with what Matt Mitrione said today, that this is Stipe is still going to be number one. This is essentially a tournament for the number one contender of the heavyweight world ranking. In which case, I put it to you: is there anyone in the heavyweight division in the UFC that could be put into this? It could be put into this championship that would fuck up the Bellator rankings.
Most.
I mean, I know he just had a pretty poor viewing, but I would say the number one contender in the UFC at the minute is still Francis Ngannou until the new rankings come out. And I know he exposed a tremendous amount of holes in his game plan, but it's like, just put Francis Ngannou in that Grand Prix. I see him absolutely smoking everyone. Like, the only one with any chance is Chael Sonnen because of his wrestling, but he's tiny compared to Francis. And I know Stipe was small compared to Francis, but there's a difference between 265 versus 236. And then 265 versus 220.
I think most in the heavyweight division smoke that tournament. For me, again, we've done a lot of time travelling in this episode, I feel. But if we go 5-10 years, if I see that tournament 5-10 years ago, I am so hyped.
Oh, incredible.
So hyped for it. But
probably the best tournament in MMA history.
Oh, 100%. But now it's just old men. And none of the, it's exciting to see the fights, but everyone knows deep down that it's going to be a snooze fest. And I'm not a massive fan of it at all.
Yeah, I think I'm going to
especially it being headline.
I'm not going to watch the Bellator card, I don't think, this weekend. That's a separate note, but I'll watch Frank Mir versus Fadal just because I'm interested in that one. I
think Frank Mir submits Fadal.
Yeah, I like Frank Mir, and Fadal's always interesting to watch at some sort of level, just because you wonder, can he kind of show any
status
signs of old Fedor? Yeah. So I'll watch that one because I think that's an interesting matchup, and I think that's what they were going for with this tournament, was like you finally get to see all these people meet, and that's like that. That's the one that I think they're really focusing on as like the main part of the tournament. But yeah, Mitrione versus Nelson to me is like sure, and then King Mo versus Ryan Bader. If King Mo wins, right, this is a stupid point. It's a heavyweight tournament. Ryan Bader's the light heavyweight
Bader's the champion.
If King Mo beats him, does he get a light heavyweight title match, or does he get? That would I'd be annoyed at that if I was King Mo.
I mean, he absolutely has to get a title shot at light heavyweight, but then he has to wait. So assuming Ryan Bader then goes on to at least advance to the finals, or prospectively win the entire tournament, he has to wait for Ryan Bader to become the heavyweight champ, and then drop back down to 205 to challenge him, or he vacates, in which case they've messed up two divisions when they were trying to establish one. I mean, then what happens if King Mo beats Ryan Bader? Does he get an immediate title shot at 205?
It's strange.
He's beating him, and like they're weighing in not much more than that, and they're probably cutting from that anyway. So like, the whole.
Go on.
I was just going to say, I think the whole premise of this tournament was very poorly thought out. Like I said before, it's very Bellator. It's kind of like, oh, what did the UFC leave us on the floor as scraps? We're going to pile this together and call it Sunday dinner. It's a bit of a mess. It's pretty cool, but it's a bit of a mess.
Is the belt on the
In my opinion, I think Brian Bader's really underrated. I think I completely forgot he's in the tournament, and I think he probably, obviously with the weaknesses we saw in Francis, and I know that's a massive weight difference, but I think he probably has the best chance out of everyone, and also he I can't remember what university it is in America, but they became like almost viral sensations for the free throw, where they have the like distraction behind the free throw.
Yeah.
But I think it was the recent one where Ryan Bader came out in just his. He came out with, I think, 2 giant Pikachus either side of him, and he was just in his underwear with the light heavyweight belt like covering.
Yeah.
I think.
So on that note, I seen a thing today where I think it was Sherdog published their world light heavyweight rankings, and they had Ryan Bader as number 2 behind Alexander Gustafsson and the rest of the UFC light heavyweight. So I just wanted to get your guys' opinions on that. Like, do you think he is number 2 at light heavyweight?
2 in the world.
2 in the world, yeah. So like all the promotions combined, he was number 2.
Gustafsson beats him. I think possibly even Ozdemir. I know. Again, he got kind of a weakness got shown by DC, but I still think Ozdemir beats him.
I mean, a weakness like that getting shown by DC is not a major problem. Like, oh great, you got out wrestled by an Olympic wrestler. Like, so would 99.9% of the population. Like, big deal. But yeah, I agree.
That 0.1% is possibly Stipe Miocic.
Yeah, well, he's not an Olympic wrestler, so we'll see about that.
But I think we're going to do predictions. The last 3 fights on the card. So first one, we'll start with Brad. Liam Maguri versus Vadim Nemkov. Who do you have?
So my intentions go for Liam Maguri because I've seen him fight before. But I'm actually going to go controversial and go Vadim Nemkov. I've not seen him fight before, therefore I can't claim to see what his expertise are. But I'm going to say Vadim via a second round KO or TKO. And then Patricky Pitbull is an absolute monster, so I'm gonna take him by first round KO or TKO. Derek Campos is very talented, But Patricky is incredible. He's a very good fighter. I really, really like his style. And in the main event, Matt Mitrione versus Roy Nelson. I love me a fat guy. Roy Nelson. Roy Nelson by a second round TKO. So we got Vadim, Patricky, and Roy.
Cool. Kyle?
I know nothing about this card apart from the main event. What a casual I am. So
Boo you.
I do know Magiri, but not well enough to be able to pick him in a fight. To be honest, as soon as I saw that it was the Mitrione versus Nelson card, I was like, I don't need to pay attention to this. I can't see how anyone would say I'm going to stay up and watch Matt Mitrione versus Roy Nelson in 2018. I think Matt Mitrione will probably win by like TKO in the third round or something, but I'm not going to hang my hat on it or anything.
I will say this though. I've not actually seen it myself, but somebody I know apparently said that the Bellator card, because it goes on tonight at night, and it normally gets played on Channel 4 a week later. And someone I know messaged me before and said, "Oh, by the way, Bellator is being streamed on Saturday night at 11 p.m."
Yeah, I saw that.
So
also.
I don't know if that's actually true because I've not actually looked it up. But
I'll say my predictions as we get our researcher Kyle on the go.
Yeah.
But I think I agree, Magiri. I think it's going to be decision. Just grind it out a bit. Patricky Pitbull again. I've got him, but I think second round TKO, just a monster. And then in the main event, I've got Roy Nelson. I still kind of hold on to the hope that Roy Nelson is just a one-punch knockout artist.
I think he is though.
You don't lose that power. You lose it like slightly, but you always have that kind of natural rawness that Roy Nelson does, and I just want to see him sit on top of the cage and rub his belly. I think we spoke about Taito Avasa's scarring me, and I think that'll scar me, especially in 2018.
I think if he wins the entire heavyweight championship, the entire MMA community could start a GoFundMe to just buy him unlimited KFC for his celebration party.
I wonder what is his fast food of choice. I think everything. Looking at him,
I mean, yeah. I'm just looking at his record over the last few years, and it's pretty crap.
Yeah, well, he lost the walkaway knockout loss to Mark Hunt. I remember.
He has actually beaten Matt Mitrione before. I didn't know that.
That was the first one, wasn't it?
Yeah. He's lost to Stipe, to DC, Mark Hunt, over him, Josh Barnett, Derek Luce, and Alexander Volkov.
Because Nelson and Mitrione were both in Tough 5, I think it was, together. With Brendan Schaub, and it was that season.
Yeah,
that was a good.
Brendan Schaub, and I only had 2 Tough seasons on DVD, and it was Tough 4, which was the one where Matt Serra won and went on to beat GSP, and then Tough 5, which was Mitrione, Schaub,
great
Roy Nelson. I can't remember his name. What died recently was the Street Fighter. What's his name?
Kimbo.
Kimbo Slice.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was that. It was my favourite ever Brendan Schaub story. Is when Kimbo Slice thought he was black.
Yeah. Great story.
I mean, not to bring it up, but like, didn't everyone think Brendan was black? Like, I mean, he's definitely got something in there, hasn't he? Like
more people are coming after you for hate crimes.
I know.
Well, he is called Big Brown. That is.
I know. Yeah, like he's like, oh, I don't understand why people think I'm black. I'm like, you call yourself Big Brown. It's like.
So, after speaking about I feel we've kind of slated the Bellator card, but it'll probably now be an amazing card. voice crack there. An amazing card. But I think now moving on to UFC, which is the card we're all excited about. But it's a shame it's on a Sunday, and we all have early Monday mornings.
Yeah.
But headlined by Cowboy Cerrone, then Yancy Medeiros, and everyone loves Cowboy. But can he break his losing streak? Because obviously he lost to our boy Darren Till.
Darren.
We'll go run through our predictions. But I've got Medeiros in this fight.
Oh.
And again controversial, but I think, I hate to say it, but Cowboy's going to turn up with hair and he's going to lose.
Yeah. For the record, I did try and find out if the Bellator card is being shown in the UK, and according to the website that I was looking at, that the article got published on Tuesday, they said that it isn't being shown on UK TV, despite some events being shown. So, yeah. I really wish this card was on tomorrow night, to be honest. Well, Saturday night. Because I love Donald Cerrone and I love Yancy Medeiros. So I think that's gonna be a great fight. So I'm really gutted I don't get to watch that one, to be honest.
Yeah, I fully agree. I'd actually fully geared myself up, like, as UK MMA fans, staying up to watch a card that does not just involve just staying up till 12.
Takes preparation.
It takes a week of mental preparation. You have to cancel your Sunday plans. You've got to cancel your Saturday plans. I had friends that wanted to go out on Saturday night. It's all been cancelled. I'm not really that bothered. I didn't really want to go out. But
the social butterfly that you are.
Exactly. But it is a shame because it's a really good card. But part of me thinks that Cerrone, I mean, we all know he's the Cowboy. He likes to fight, but part of me thinks it's that he's on his way out and he just wants as much money as possible. He doesn't mind getting battered on his way out.
He sells fights, and he will always sell fights.
Yeah, I mean the fact that he just lost a fight night main event, and then he just snapped his fingers, and he's in another main event fight night against like another thirsty up and comer. Like I'm not saying I don't knock him for doing it at all, but like Yancy's not the kind of guy that you just go in and like. It's the same with the Darren Till thing where he said like, "Oh, I've watched no tape. I don't know who this guy is." I fully think that's the case with Yancy. But he goes into the fight, he doesn't know who he is, doesn't know what his specialities are. I think he just goes in there and he just thinks, good old Cowboy Cerrone, we're going to get it done. If we don't get it done, it's a paycheck at the end of the day. I'd be very, very surprised if Cowboy's still fighting at the end of this year, and especially in the UFC. If he loses this, it's his fourth loss in a row, if I'm not mistaken, because it was Masvidal, Lawler, Till, and then Medeiros.
But you look at those three. Masvidal is just a beast, and I think we've still got kind of more to see from him. Robbie Lawler is again just a legend of the sport, and then Darren Till, who I feel we don't need to sing his praises on this podcast.
No, we do. Let's.
He's amazing.
So for the next hour,
he's amazing.
Should we all just go around and say our favourite things about Darren Till?
But yeah, I hate to say it, but there's a kind of a slight thing in me that agrees that one, he's not prepared for what Yancy can bring, but two, if he loses this, where does he go?
Yeah,
I mean, I will say this: they're very similar in terms of fighters. They're both very skilled. I will say, in terms of actual skill, I think Cerrone's better, but in terms of miles on the clock, energy, and especially thirst, hunger for the sport, I think Yancy's just got it. especially with this up and coming Hawaiian thing.
Yeah, the whole Hawaii and the chance for card being there and
like I know that's in part a market thing, but it's also not. Like they're seeing their chance to finally become marketable under the wing of Max Holloway, and Yancy put on a fucking display against Cowboy Oliveira, and I don't see anything that Cowboy brings to the table that Cowboy. Fucking that's
so many Cowboys.
Yeah, that's just confusing. I don't think there's nothing that Oliveira brings to the table that Cowboy necessarily doesn't or does, and I think it's going to be very similar. It's going to be a great main event either way. I just don't think he wins.
First fight on the card is Sage Northcutt. We spoke about his lack of body fat, but will he ever actually reach his stupidly high potential? Will he ever make it, or will he just be another fallen MMA prospect that could have been?
I think he will. He's so ridiculously young to be competing in, the UFC is unquestionably the top of mixed martial arts, and to be competing at that higher level at that young is ridiculous. He just needs time. I think he'll probably win this one. Maybe a submission late on or a decision, but they just need to pace themselves with Sage Northcutt. Let him string together a couple wins, put him against some other prospects. But I feel like he might get hurt by being in the UFC at such a young age, because he's just you're fighting top level opponents at every stage. He doesn't. My worry with Sage Northcutt is he won't take the time to develop, because he's constantly training for the next guy and stuff. So yeah, we'll see. He hasn't fought for a while, I think. All right on that. So hopefully we see a more improved Northcutt.
He's a very interesting prospect, but it's like you say, I can't see how the UFC have promoted him so virulently in such a small amount of time. Especially, he's undergone a couple of weight class changes as well. Like he went up to welterweight to face Mickey Gall, and he's dropped again. And I think this bout's at lightweight. I'm not particularly sure. But he's kind of
even he's sure.
With that kind of muscle, I don't think it really matters. It's just like how much water do I have to suck out of my muscles? I mean, the way he weighs in, it's very reminiscent of Conor when he weighed in. He's like, oh, you look like a crackhead. Fabulous. This is what we want our athletes to look like. He's a weird one. He's a victim of his success far too early on. He's a weird one as well because, you want your fighters to be badass, and you almost feel weird about mentioning fights around him because he seems so young that you're like, don't swear. Sage hasn't heard that word before. It's like I saw girls like fawning over him. I'm like, guys, like, girls, chill out. I'm not really sure he's been told what sex is yet. Just
good, clean Christian boy.
Yeah, and he still calls Uriah Mr. Faber, and that's just adorable. Like, it's just adorable.
His voice is just—it's so upbeat and so, hey, everything's good, yay! It's like he works at Butlins.
Yeah, great holiday rap.
He would make an unbelievable holiday rap.
I mean, he's one of them. He's like a puppy. Imagine seeing him sad. It'd be the most heartbreaking thing you'd ever seen.
Couldn't deal with that.
I can't imagine what a Sage Northcutt that's not California kid level prep. Like, even if he wasn't just preppy, even if he was just normal, I think it'd be the most depressing thing you'd ever see.
Yeah.
I mean, can you honestly be champion if you're not willing to go through some adversity? And like, I know he's probably willing to, but like, I just don't know that the public are willing to believe that he's willing to. And I think that's a perfect reason why he will never get given that title shot.
I agree. I think it's just he was way too early, and he was used mainly as promotion for Dana White looking for a fight, because I think he was on the very first episode of that and was pushed from that, and kind of he not only was he pushed into the spotlight quite soon, but he kind of had to set like a benchmark for that show and kind of be like, oh, this show's going to work, and I think he only came into the UFC on what, 5-0, I think.
I don't think it was that. I
think it might have been less, but I know Mickey Gall was.
No, you're right. It's 5-0.
Was 5-0? Yeah, I know Mickey Gall. I think was 2-1 or 2-0, but I think he was just pushed too soon, and I think he just needs to. He's really good and so much raw potential. I mean, but I just don't think he can make it.
As much as we joke about the fact that he's like this goody-goody two-shoes, like, when he gets in the cage, he's ferocious. Like, the moment he takes a guy down, and he's, like, I wouldn't even call it a ground and pound, but, like, just when he stood over a guy and just hammer-fisted him on the face, he's so muscular and he's so strong that it's horrendous. He's ferocious. He has actual potential, but the fact of the matter is he's being thrown into that limelight. It's like... And we were talking before about this, Israel Adesanya. Like, I get that he's had a career before, but the pair of them are just suffering from the fact that the UFC needs a star, and so they're willing to just throw these new pups to the dogs. And, you know, if it works, fantastic. But the chances are it's not going to work, because even if you're an amazing fighter, your potential as an athlete against an experienced athlete is diminished. I mean, we saw it recently with like Francis Ngannou. You could not imagine a more, like, I don't even know what the word is. The fighter with the most potential.
I was gonna say, I think that was the biggest kind of hype train derailment.
And then you give it to an athlete, and the athlete's like, "Yo, not today."
Mm. No, you don't give him to an athlete. You give him to a firefighter.
Yeah.
And the firefighter is like, no, not today.
Yeah, put that fire out. I mean, I think that's the problem with Sage. He's just, he keeps getting given. He's given this shot after shot. I mean, I don't know if you guys noticed, but the UFC's promotion for this fight night, Sage is the opening fighter on the card, and he's on their poster. Not on the official poster, but you know, the weird white on black background that they do. They had Sage versus Tybalt, and I was just thinking, like, what other main card opener ever gets that kind of promotion? And it's the same with Paige Van Zandt. Like, what kind of fighter with her record gets that kind of promotion? It's the UFC are flogging a dead horse, and they're just like, no, this person's going to be great. This person's going to be great, and it's like, it ain't. Yeah. Admit it.
Tybalt is 3-1 in the UFC as well, as in 3 losses, 1 win. He lost 3 straight in the UFC, and then he won on the Volkov versus Struve card. So, yeah, it's not as if, you know, it's Sage, you know, a fight like Sage versus Mickey Gall on a main card makes sense because that's a big prospect fight. But, yeah.
If you look, so I didn't realise, I actually saw, so I was at Tybalt Guti's debut. That was the only card I went to. That was the Silver Bisping card.
Oh, yeah.
I think, but looking at his, it's really, he's faced Timu Pakalan, who's a strong fighter, Olivia Aubin Mercer, who's kind of was going to be the big Canadian push that hasn't really worked out that well, and then Chad Laprise. But if you look at he was in the Timu Pakalan, I remember he was kind of caught with an early punch and then rocked and submitted. Chad Laprise, another early knockout. So really, I think overlooking him is a bit much, because before then he was undefeated 11-0. I just think he's just had a bit of a rough start, and I can kind of see him beating Sage Northcutt. And I hate to say it, but I can see it happening.
It's one of them, isn't it, where they expect it to just be a feed-in to give an extra number on their record, and history has told us that it doesn't always happen that way.
No.
It's I was thinking the other day, the cyborg, whatever her name is, Russian bitch.
We're such casuals. We're such casuals.
Just starting arguments with everybody today.
I mean, I actually looked up this woman's record and I watched some of her fights. She's impressive. She's good. She's good. She's definitely not Cyborg's level, but she's good. But the thing is, it's a fight. It's anyone's game. And the fact of the matter is, the UFC are clearly banking on it happening one way and not the other. And what do you do when it happens the other? It's like I was literally thinking, like, with the Cyborg fight, what if, what's her name, Yana Kutsiana, something like that. Close enough. Yeah, close enough.
Clearly not good enough performances for you to remember her name.
I know. I mean, she was very similar to Khabib's style. She's somewhat sambo, ground and pound, which can prove problems for a lot of people, including Brazilian jiu-jitsu practitioners. I don't think Cyborg's one of these people, but my thought was, what if she comes out, grabs her, throws her to the floor, and then just ground and pounds her and beats her, and she's the champion? We're left with a champion that literally nobody knows. Nobody knows.
Another one.
I mean, what are we out? A couple of weeks, 3 weeks from this? I've not seen an advert. I've not seen any promotion about the contender. To be quite honest, I've not seen any promotion for Cyborg, but we all know who Cyborg is, so that's fine. I feel like it's the same kind of thing with Sage and this other contender. It's that assumption that they're going to beat them. It's like, how many times has that worked for you before?
Yeah.
Which ruins it. But I think moving on to our predictions, again, the last 3 fights. So, James Vick versus Francisco Trinaldo. Who do you have, Brad?
James Vick. I'm going to say via decision.
Kyle?
James Vick, first round TKO.
I think I've got James Vick by decision as well. Derek Lewis, Marcin Tybura. Brad?
Again, they're going to be controversial. I'm going to say Tybura via second round TKO or KO.
Tybura's actually the favourite on the betting odds.
Is it?
Yeah. Is it?
Is it? Yeah. No way.
Yeah.
I thought it was going to be against
as controversial as you think.
At least that's what Schultz said on his podcast. I was listening to it earlier. So, yeah.
Oh.
Cool, Carl?
I'm going to take Derek Lewis, second round KO. Probably put some money on that. Well.
Yeah, no, I said I've got Derek Lewis first round, but I think not as much as I'm not a betting man compared to you two, but I think I put all my stuff on verdict. So I think that's I spend my fake XP.
And then it still has the same neurological effect, I'm telling you.
There you go. And that's coming from PH Dixon right there.
Yeah.
And finally, main event. I already said mine. I think I think on verdict Medeiros by decision. But yeah, I think definitely Medeiros to win. Brad?
Yancy third round. TKO.
I actually watched an interview with Don Cerrone earlier, and he seemed really positive. He was saying about how he used to always, scoff at fighters when they're like, "Oh, I feel like I'm in the best shape I've ever been in," and he was like, "I genuinely feel like I am, and my camp's been brilliant and stuff." So I'm quite optimistic about Don Cerrone. I love Yancy Medeiros, but I don't know if I want to be in a world where Don Cerrone's on a 4-fight loss streak. So
loser streak.
Yeah. So
I think I'd even question myself at that rate. I'm like, am I doing anything wrong as a fan for him?
But at the same time, Donald Cerrone is such a fighter to his core that I don't know if a loss streak really affects him mentally. he lives for fighting, and he like with the Robbie Lawler one, he was trying to get Robbie to engage with him and like really get hyped about the fight. He just wants a good fight. So I'm sure Donald Cerrone will carry on fighting for years to come. However, on the flip side, nobody is the same after they face Darren Till. But I'm still going to pick Donald, third round KO.
Nice. So now moving on to our special segment. Each episode we have a feature where our quiet and reserved Northerner gets to share what's on his mind. So Brad, what do you have beef with this week?
Thank you. My beef this week is about the fact that in MMA and in UFC in particular, the way that the fighters are paid is on a 50-50 split win versus show purse. I mean, this is very different in terms of the pay schedule when it comes to the boxing regime, which is 100% show. Partially, I just think it's a very controversial system in that I don't understand the way that the UFC can argue that a fighter has any more enthusiasm for a fight simply because they're going to win. At the end of the day, these people are incredible athletes. They come to the event, they're fully prepped, they've had a massive camp, they've had massive preparation, they've gone through the mental warfare of a press conference, they've gone through the mental warfare of the lead up to the fight. The camp itself is a severe toll on their emotions, on their psychology, on their cognitive emotions, as well as their physical well-being. And then they come into this and they're expected to think that they're not going to try 100%. The UFC says all the time that the reason they have a 50-50 split is because they want the fighter to try harder to be the winner. They're always trying the hardest to be the winner. So the reason that the boxing style, I think, has the better option is because the fighter comes to the fight with 100% enthusiasm. They're not coming with 50%, they're coming with 100%. So they're not trying any harder. They're coming to fight. And if you're not coming to fight to die, it will be found out very quickly. And for that reason, I think the UFC should scrap the 50-50 model.
Nice. Slightly more calm and reserved compared to the anger that you brought last episode.
I tell you, last week I was...
That was nice and fresh.
Last week I was hours out of being refused tickets, so you got a very vitriolic answer. So very calm, very reserved, quite calculated.
He's very, as he said, calm and calculated, because now he has his first defence of the heavy debate title.
Come on, can we get a Bruce Buffer style introduction?
I wish I could. I will practice for the next episode.
Reigning, defending,
I don't want
heavyweight debate title holder.
I just know that I'll be listening to this through headphones and be instantly hating myself when I hear this back. So we have 3 rounds of vicious, I tell you, debating. Each debater gets 1 minute to convince me. Plus they get a 15-second counterpunch, which we have changed the rules. So you can only use the counterpunch once in the whole debate. So you have to select your round. So the first round, we are going to flip a coin. Brad, as you are defending, heads or tails?
Tails never fails. Let's go tails.
Tails does fail. It's heads. So, Kyle, do you want to go first or second?
I'll go second.
Ooh, second. So, Brad, in the first round, I will tell you when 1 minute starts. 1 minute starts when you start to speak. Who should Nate Diaz face?
Thanks, Connor. So, I'm going to go a bit against the grain for who I believe that Nate Diaz should face next. So there's been a lot of speculation. Should he fight Conor? Should he fight T. Wood? I'm going to go massively outfield and say I think he should fight Jorge Masvidal. He's in the division that Nate last faced in the 170 division. I don't think Nate can make 155 again. He seems huge these days. And just as personalities clash, I think him versus Jorge would be amazing. They're both so game to fight. They're both brawlers. They're both well-versed on the ground. They're both great strikers. They're both just so fucking ready to fight. It would be an absolute war where neither one of them would ever give up.
10 seconds left.
Nobody's putting Jorge for Nate to fight, and I'm putting him there. I'm championing him. Go. Connor.
Done. 3 seconds left. So, Kyle, you've heard. Who should Nate Diaz fight next?
Okay, I'm going to change my pick and go with Eddie Alvarez. I do think Nate can make 155. He's a ridiculous athlete and he's ridiculously lean, so I'm sure he'll have no problems doing that. I was going to say the winner of Gaethje versus Poirier, but then I remembered that Alvarez knocked out Gaethje, so he's, the most violent lightweight on the planet. Why not have him against Nate Diaz? That sounds great. If Alvarez wins, you could throw him back in there with the title contenders. If Diaz wins, then you can do the McGregor fight really easily because they both beat Alvarez. It just makes sense. The trash talking would be brilliant. The face-offs would be brilliant. The fight would be brilliant. Eddie Alvarez doesn't back down and always comes back. And Nate Diaz never goes away. So it's a great fight. Just all round. So, yeah.
Cool. So, do either of you want to use your 15-second counterpunch?
Yep, I'm using it.
Or in the first round?
Yep, using it.
Your 15-second counterpunch starts when you start talking.
Nate is a brawler. He only ever uses his ground game when he needs to. Eddie Alvarez is a wrestler. He's going to take him down to the floor, and it's going to be a boring-ass fucking fight. He's a wrestler. He doesn't do well on the ground. He wrestles the guy in the grounds and pounds, and then it's going to be a swift submission. With Jorge, it's just going to be a brawl.
Am I allowed to use my counterpunch?
Oh, both using your counterpunch.
Both going in on this round.
Okay, so 15-second counterpunch starts when you start talking.
I think that's interesting that if Alvarez does take him down, does Nate get the submission? May I remind you, he pulled off a triangle whilst putting middle fingers up in the air.
That was if you could see us, that was a true mic drop moment.
Imagine if he did that against Eddie Alvarez. It'd be the greatest moment.
CM Punk pipe bomb esque. That was.
Yeah.
I think both of those answers came from left of field, but thinking about it, one of the answers does make sense. Though Masvidal is a good fight, and I rate Jorge Masvidal highly, the Eddie Alvarez fight does make sense. It does depend on whether he can make 155 again, but I remember Alvarez I think he called out Diaz over some sort of social media. And it does, again, you can if Alvarez wins, you throw him back into the title picture. And if Diaz wins, it just makes sense for the Conor fight. And I think the 15-second counterpunch from Kyle did swing me. Because it's just the image in my mind of Diaz just flipping the bird and just lying back.
To be fair, if he did that to Masvidal, it would be like the most gangster moment in MMA also. So
it already is.
Say
Saying
that. Come on.
But so I'm scoring the first round 10-9 to Kyle. So
also the
champion is on the back foot.
They're working on Lyoto Machida versus Vitor for UFC 224 in Brazil.
Ooh,
that's in the works. I would imagine.
Brazil.
I really hope
Leo versus Vitor.
Yeah.
Like we literally predicted earlier in this podcast.
Yeah. Which I hope is them both leaving.
This isn't live at all, and probably won't go out for another few days, but they are listening.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
And
Sean Shelby has spied on our laptops.
Tapping our phones.
I would much rather see that in Japan, though. I feel like that's the takeaway from
Yeah,
that fight. Is
Yeah.
that fight would be a lot more entertaining if it was elsewhere.
We thought Rising was spying on us. It was actually the UFC all along.
So, moving on to the second round. Champion on the back foot. So, he's not very happy with it. But, Brad, I can't remember who started. It was, so Kyle, start now. Time starts when you start speaking. Should Michael Bisping retire?
Haven't thought about this one at all. Should he retire?
Well prepared.
No, I don't think Michael Bisping should retire. First of all, I love watching Bisping fight. He's an absolute warrior. I don't want. Also, it feels Michael Bisping's career in the UFC is such a storybook so far with the Rockhold fight and then getting the GSP fight as well. I don't want it to end with him losing to Gastelum and then be like, should I, shouldn't I? I mean, he does often say, he doesn't have anything to prove, and I agree with that, but I feel like maybe one more in England and give him a proper send-off. Personally, it would have been amazing if Yoel Romero had lost to Luke Rockhold, and then we could have had Yoel Romero versus Michael Bisping.
10 seconds.
Which I think we all need to see. Just especially if it was in Cuba. That would be wow. So,
and done.
So, yeah.
You mentioned Yoel Romero, and automatically I can tell that all of us just went back to the "I love you." Just thinking about Yoel Romero's promos, they just genuinely do. When they were doing the Q&As before pay-per-views, I think they need to do a Q&A with Yoel Romero.
Yeah, I hate Luke Rockhold.
Even when he's not on the card, just bring him out.
Definitely.
No, they should. The next Conor fight should have a Yoel Romero Q&A. Just drunk Irishmen asking a mental Cuban questions.
Definitely.
Yoel, who do you love? I love you.
Just everyone.
He's just going around kissing everybody. It'd be great.
Everyone in the queue's just like, who do you love? I love you.
I love your amazing Yoel Romero impression.
Yeah.
Makes up for your hideous Irish accent.
I hoped he would going into that. He would.
So
I was kind of.
Kyle.
I was going to be my secret card in this.
So Kyle says no, he shouldn't. Brad, the time starts when you start talking. Should Michael Bisping retire?
Had this question been asked before the main event for UFC London been announced, I'd have said no. But afterwards, I have to say yes. I mean, there isn't a legitimate fight for him to have in the middleweight division. There isn't a legitimate fight for him to have in the light heavyweight division. The perfect time, he announced his retirement fight after the Gastelum fight, and then UFC London happened. It was announced, and everyone was like, "This is it." He even said, like, if you listen to his podcast, he even said, "This is it. This is what I want to do." The Rashad Evans fight was thrown about for a bit. There was the Vitor Belfort fight was thrown about for a bit, and then it was announced it wasn't going to happen. What we're going to get now is a letdown of a main event. Bisping should not fight on a UK card when he's not.
10 seconds.
And if he's not fighting the main event, it's a travesty. It's going to be a letdown. He needs to retire, get his eye fixed, and we're done.
So I think, the one point I would have gone for is both of you mentioned that the main event of past weekend. I think they need a UK card. I think the next UK card they do should be Rockhold versus Bisping. Kind of round it up, give Bisping one last fight in the UK, and I think that's kind of the middle ground between both of your points. But I think, tough decision. Though fairy tales are nice, and I don't want it to end on a Kelvin Gastelum knockout. I have to agree. I think he has to retire. He's doing really well with the presenting. UFC can give him a few more shows. But I think, I'm giving this one 10-9 to the champion, the defending champion.
I agree,
Brad.
to be honest. If I thought about it more, I agree. It's just I really want to see him fight Yoel Romero.
Promos.
If you want to see my podcast notes, I was just like, no, like don't retire. But that's purely selfish reasons on our part. Like,
yeah.
I don't
UK fans.
I don't know if you've seen him on his most recent UFC on Fox. His eye is horrendous. Like it's literally gone like glazed over. It's completely shut. He needs to get it fixed. He needs to get it fixed. Like the fact that he can get it fixed and he's not doing because of the possibility he might fight. It's just retire, man. Just get it fixed. Just do it.
I think definitely get into presenting, but I think there's a possible chance for him to move back, if the money's good, to move back to the UK and be a part of BT Sport. Because if BT Sport can fund some good shows, and they've got enough money, I'm sure they can pay Bisping well.
I mean, like,
I think you can get a good UK MMA show here and have Bisping head it, and kind of, I hate to compare him to Gary Lineker, but kind of that sort of thing for the UK, and he would definitely do really well as a presenter.
It's such a terrible missed opportunity. Like, I know the BBC have just started their own MMA podcast, but like that's all they're doing. I'm like, it baffles me with the world media how they're not getting on this. Like the MMA phenomenon is rising. You either get on it now, or you miss the opportunity. And I feel like most media organizations just like, we're just gonna see how this plays out. It's a terrible organization, and like you say, the BBC could have like a dedicated, if not a dedicated program, they could at least do like an hour.
Well, they've got the NFL show now, and they kind of, I think BT are probably the ones that could probably pay the big bucks and get some good people in and get them to present it.
Yeah, and especially Bisping, it's a good one to do.
Yeah, definitely. I think definitely after that, I think definitely retire and possibly look for presenting opportunities.
Yeah.
But moving into the final round now, it's all to play for. Brad's pride is on the line as well. He's been talking a big game, but he's been on the back foot slightly.
It's 1-1, bitch.
See the fighting talk. He was flipping the bird as I announced that he won round 2. But so we are now going to the third and final round. Brad, who is the worst current UFC champion?
I'm going to go with Nico Montano, who's so bad that I'm not even particularly sure that I actually pronounced the second name correctly. I'm all for the tough series being introduced to full rank, but I don't think that they should do it to have an inaugural champion. Nico is not the best flyweight women's champion in the world. We discussed earlier in this talk that she's not only not the best flyweight, she's also probably not the best strawweight. She's also probably not the best bantamweight. She's nowhere near a champion in this women's division. She's a very good fighter. She barely got past Roxanne Modafferi. She would never survive a single title defense. She's facing up being eaten alive. If she's not a champion, I don't know what is.
10 seconds.
Not only that, she's not promoted anything. What is there to argue? She's the worst.
And strong argument from Brad in the final round. Kyle, who is the worst UFC champion?
Okay, well, Roxanne Modafferi is a pretty good contender, I think, for that division, and she beat her, and she also made her way through that tough season. So clearly, a decent fighter in that weight class. I don't know if she's the best, but she's decent. Now, if you look at the lightweight division, Conor McGregor has beat one lightweight, and that's Eddie Alvarez, who, it was a terrible performance from Eddie Alvarez. Nico Montano has done nothing with that division for what? Couple months, 2-3 months. Conor McGregor has done nothing with that division for about a year and a half. He literally won one fight there, and that was his title fight. Nate Diaz doesn't count. It's ridiculous. He's the worst UFC champion, and I liked him as the featherweight champion, but he didn't defend. Hasn't defended this belt either.
10
He's
seconds.
The worst. He should just vacate. It's getting to the point now where it's another Durandamy case where it's like, are you scared of fighting Khabib or Tony, or like what's going on? Just give it up.
No counter punch.
It's not a rebuttal, but I will. Asterisk. He's not quite the champion. He's a bit of an asterisk champion.
No, he is. He hasn't been stripped yet.
He is the champion currently at the time of recording.
Oh, not the undisputed champion though.
Again, both very good arguments, passionate arguments. Montano, again, I wasn't a massive fan of the Tough series, and I agree that it doesn't work out because Carla Esparza, who she won the Tough series to become champion of her division, and then got murdered by Joanna. And I think with Conor, though it has been a year and a half, I think that he's been out and hasn't defended it yet, and that obviously that's not a great champion. It depends what. I feel it's kind of opinionated. It's what you define worst as. And though Conor hasn't defended, I think he's not the worst champion. I think only time will tell. If he does end up fighting, or if he vacates it, or ends up fighting and loses, then I think you could probably class him as the worst. But for now, Montano is the worst UFC champion, which means I'm giving that a 10-9 to Brad. And it means he has defended his heavy debate title.
Yes!
He is very happy with that.
The reigning, defending GOAT of the heavy debate title.
I feel we do need to get some special guests on the podcast though to kind of to fight. I feel this is currently not a very stacked division at the moment.
Well, it's kind of like Mighty Mouse above the rest of the division. You have to go at the top and then just fucking pretenders at the bottom. So
there's the talk. We need challengers for this man.
I feel like Shevchenko. I might move to another podcast or something.
I feel like we should all buy belts and then we can do video casts and I can just walk around with the belt.
I don't think anyone wants to see our faces just yet. But that finishes our second podcast for Cage Side Combat. Brad, where can they find you on Twitter?
Stupid Flanders with an extra S.
And Kyle, where can they find you?
Kyle_Diamond.
I'm Connor.Whelan73. And thank you for listening.
Cheers.
Bye, guys.